Hey guys, welcome back to Outriders. It's Pancake God. Coming at you with another lore video today. Today I'm going to be talking about the Insurgents and who they are and the different types of Insurgents amongst the ranks. And yeah, let's just get right into it. So to start off the video, I'm going to start off by reading off the Insurgents lore tabs in their group section. And here we go. History of Madness by R.T. Elliott, the official archive. Realizing the colonization authority had abandoned them, leaving them utterly exposed to Enoch's horrors, a revolutionary group formed calling themselves Exiles. These insurgents, as the ECA calls them, launched an all-out assault against the authority. Despite their superior numbers, the insurgents' inferior weaponry, training, and discipline resulted in their attacks being easily rebuffed. But the insurgents' cause seemed all but lost. But the ECA was in for an ugly surprise. Soon after the storm started coming, the first altar began emerging among the insurgents. The power and fury of these first monstrosities were enough to turn the tide of war. The ECA's panicked failed attempts at first killing the insurgents and their leaders, and then peace brokering were met with derision. The insurgents were out for blood. Today, the insurgents are ruled by merciless, altered warlords who believe themselves to be gods, near immortals who bathe in the horror of war, feeding their flock with hatred towards the ECA and nihilist lust for. So as for where the insurgents live on Enoch, they live in the northern territory of the Warzone Valley, and the ECA and everyone else lives in the southern. Okay, so we're going to start off with the weakest and make our way up to the strongest amongst the insurgents. Riflemen. Forming the backbone of most of the cannon fodder of the insurgents' army, the rifleman is the first line of defense and the first line of attack. They are responsible for fortifying defenses, replenishing ammunition, maintaining equipment, manning stationary guns, keeping watch, and the disgusting, undignified work of cleaning the filth that accumulates in the trenches. In combat, the rifleman is an agile, fast-moving soldier that provides cover support for other units that prefer to close or keep their distance. The rifleman will attempt flanking maneuvers or use frag grenades to flush out targets that hunker down behind cover, and can deploy smoke canisters to conceal positions and confuse their opponent. It only takes a heartbeat to qualify for a rifleman, and they are granted minimal armor. When given the room to maneuver and use their grenades, however, they can pose a deadly threat. The spotter. The maze of trenches that scars the length of the valley calls for tacticians that can call down artillery barrages where they can cause the most damage. Spotter takes on a role as a long-distance support fighter equipped with a marksman rifle and signal radio, trained to identify coordinates and order artillery strikes. When calling down a strike, the spotter prioritizes targets that are grouped up or hiding behind cover. Their ability to call artillery makes them a high-priority target, which is why they prefer to maintain a good distance from opponents and will attempt to fall back at the first sight of trouble. Cutthroat. Entirely familiar with the claustrophobic narrows of the trenches, soldiers are often forced to engage in hand-to-hand combat, using their fists or the butts of their weapons. But facing against a charging, undulating, cutthroat-wielding scythes, there's little the average soldier can do to fight back. A crazed, suicidal zealot that has forsaken projectile weapons for the thrill of getting up close and personal. The cutthroat will tightly bind their arms, legs, or waist with cords to restrict blood flow. If they are wounded, this stops them from bleeding out before they've slaughtered their target. If they succeed in closing distance with their prey, the cutthroat unleashes a flurry of deadly strikes with sharpened weapons. Their best defense is to relentlessly charge head-on and never turn their backs to their enemy. The cutthroat is not only fearless in the face of death, but actively seeks martyrdom, and is deadlier for it. Marksman. The stalemate of the trenches provides the insurgents with plenty of opportunities to practice their marksmanship. The best crack shots are given scoped rifles and promoted to the position of marksman. Often operating from a distance of 100 meters away, the sniper has learned to identify high-value targets, blend with the environment, and negotiate the wind, humidity, and the spin drift that will affect every shot. The sniper prefers to keep a healthy distance away from any immediate danger, and uses their rifle's long range to harass and take down opponents from afar, together with a laser pointer to improve target acquisition. To increase speed for quick repositioning, the sniper sacrifices armor, and even when concerned, their sidearm can still pose a danger to the weakest foes. Breacher. In the confines of the trenches, the firepower and spread of a shotgun, known as the trench sweeper, can clear out most unarmored oppositions in seconds. Soldiers fortunate enough to make it across no man's land and jump into enemy trenches are able to quickly clear both directions in seconds. While automatic shotguns are the most devastating, pump shotguns can be just as deadly when using the rapid slamfire mode. Requiring little skill, this weapon has greater hit probability in tight spaces than most automatic shotguns. The breacher will relentlessly close distance with their target in order to deliver lethal hits at close range. The weapon's small range requires heavy armor, especially frontal. The breacher carries a bundle of grenades on his back, which he uses liberally, all but a single one. This happens to be attached to a dead man's switch. And this is referring to when you kill the breacher, he drops a grenade like the perk Martyrdom from Call of Duty. Ironclad. Lacking the resources to field reliable mechanized armor capable of navigating the trenches, the insurgents resorted to the next best thing: soldiers demonstrating lesser powers capable of carrying dense armor and heavy weaponry. Ironclad uses inhumane strength to wield a powerful chain gun, and is more than happy to hunker down and unload a stream of bullets in the general direction of any opponent. If an opponent is foolish enough to approach the Ironclad, they will use their strength to slam the ground and knock their targets off their feet. The Ironclad wears multiple plates of ballistic armor that only concentrated fire can break apart. Cremator. The insurgents are very well versed in psychological warfare and sometimes seem to regard it more highly than standard warfare itself. The sounds of war strike the greatest fear in the ranks of the EC. The telltale whistle of a mortar shell that hurtles through the air, threatening to tear them into shreds at any moment, and the screams of their fellow soldiers as they're burned alive by the fire spewed by a flamethrower. The insurgents are sadistic enough to combine these weapons into one unit, the Cremator. The Cremator employs powers and weaponry to rival Altered. When in close range, they unleash hell with a flesh-melting flamethrower. From afar, they fire incendiary shells with a mortar launcher carried on their back, which is about the only time they take a breather to reload their weapon. When surrounded, they can pound the ground to shake targets off their feet, and despite their heavy armor, their supreme strength allows them to charge over moderate distances with a short burst of effort. Those among the insurgents who display unique, altered-like abilities are promoted to captain and given command of a platoon of soldiers. For most ordinary soldiers facing against them, the difference between a captain and an altered is usually lost on them. Despite what many captains like to claim, they don't quite match up to the power and ferocity of an altered, but there are many more of them, and their skills are a significant boon to any who fight alongside them. The captain is assigned to positions that insurgents deem crucial to hold or attack, as their high resilience and ability to turn even the most spent, hopeless groups of soldiers into formidable forces makes them a clear danger. The captain is identical to another, as each one brings a different combination of abilities, weapons, and armor to the battlefield. Rainier.
You think you can fight me? Give me all you got.
Insurgent Captain. A sadistic, cruel officer leading insurgent forces opposite Rifttown. He captured you and sentenced you to death by forcing you to walk across no man's land and found pleasure in doing so. Though Rainer's first name is unknown, it is believed his parents were Brazilian metalworkers who were killed savagely in the early years of colonization. Reports say he grew up with a gang of homeless children living in the gutters, probably stealing food and dodging bullets. Like many of those caught out in the open, with only makeshift shacks and corrugated steel for shelter, they were struck by a storm. Many of his friends died while Rainier alone survived the storm and was transformed, though he did not become a true altered. As in the case with other so-called captains, his powers are limited. Still, he is by no means less dangerous. Rainier's abilities saw him conscripted into the insurgent army soon after. His new mid-level powers elevated him in rank, granting him command of a platoon of insurgents. Sources say Rainier carries a chip on his shoulder, forever feeling stunned, unfinished, not fully altered or human.
Wait! Stop! You're an altered. You can do whatever the fuck you want. Why the fuck are you fighting for those fascist assholes? We're the ones fighting for our lives. Do you even know what they did to us?
I know what you did to me.